Hello, I'm Harper and I'm here today to read to you from the fourth book in my Tyack and Frayne series, Kitto. I'm doing this for Mark Wills and Sinfully Sexy Book Reviews, so thank you very much, Mark, for inviting me along. I've also written a blog for Mark about the very sinister and interesting ancient figure of Old Penglas, or Old Penglas, who appears in many Cornish midsummer and Beltane festivals, also as the Obios at Padstow, and he is a strange old apparition with many legends attached to him. He generally appears at the festivals as a man carrying a horse's skull on a stick, and the skull forms a kind of mask, and the man wears long flowing skirts, and he dances, and there is tremendous percussion based music which is extremely frightening. And as somebody who's been to both the Galawan and the Beltane Padstow festivals, one does get drawn into it, and he's a very sinister, frightening figure, is Old Penglas. Gideon and Lee encounter him in the book Kitto when they go to the village of Kellendar, which is a fictional village but based on a place where Jane and I lived for a while when we were living in Cornwall. Gideon's really tried to take Lee away to protect him to this tiny little village, because Lee is suffering from, well, they're both suffering from a sudden expansion, a flowering of his psychic abilities. He's more or less unable to filter out the signals that he's receiving from people, leading him to become confused, terrified, and putting a great strain on their relationship, as well as Gideon strives to protect him, as he's always done. So, during this scene of the book, Gideon and Lee have gone down to the festival of Galawan in the little village of Kellendar, and the sinister figure of Old Penglas is about to make his first appearance. In the village, a borderline had been crossed between night and day. The sky over the creek was still saturated with light, but all along the waterfront, tar-filled barrels were blazing, casting all the world behind them into orange-stained dusk. Young men and women moved about among the barrels. They were dressed in close-fitting black, carrying long wooden torches. Every now and then one of them would dip an unlit torch head into the burning tar and raise the brand with a shout. The air was vivid with the scent of pitch. Gideon and Lee made their way through the crowd beginning to gather on the harbour. They kept near the outside edges, just a couple of tourists come to see the festival. Gideon strove to take an interest, to watch for any sign of John Tregear, but it was tough. His attention was fixed on the man beside him. Lee was like fire and ice. He was either not concealing what happened to him in a crowd, or no longer trying to stop it. Gideon felt the weird radar sweep of his perceptions, and a pressure like static on his skin. Does it hurt? It was the first time either of them had spoken since they'd left the stream. Lee shivered at the soft-voiced question. The lady over there in the white jacket has lost her cat, a big black tom called... I can see green carnations, so it's probably Oscar. The guy behind the hot dog stand is crazy happy. He's off backpacking to Thailand tomorrow. Those are the strongest pulses just here. The lady hurts me, the hot dog guy not. I wish to hell it would all stop. Gideon wanted to reach for him. He looked through Lee's eyes at the cat lady, who had a layer of fur on her nice jacket and marks of recent tears on her face, and then at the hot dog vendor, who was layering mustard with generous last-minute glee. Will you tell her about the cat? No need, she'll go home tonight and find him waiting on the doorstep. Good. But it's a future thing, a layer of things that happen next. I'm already drowning in the layer of now. I can't shield myself tonight. They had stopped by the harbour rail. Gideon put out a hand to grasp it, wanting an anchor before he met Lee's gaze. Why not? You've become so important to me. I have some kind of wavelength link to you. When it's working, I can tap into it, even in a crowd like this, and all the noise and the static just fades out. Gideon didn't need to ask if it was working now. He looked into Lee's face, pain welling up in him. Let me take you home then. At least I can get you out of here. At least I can still do that. No, we need to stay. He's coming, Gid, the horse-headed man in the doorway. Old Penglas. All Gideon could see were tourists and torch-bearers. The latter were forming up into a column along the narrow street. They had begun to sway and stamp to a music that had entered Gideon's bones before he'd become aware of it, a pulsating drumbeat that came from everywhere and nowhere at once. It seemed to vibrate out of the air. 2 thumps, then 1, 2, and 1. It was the riff to We Will Rock You, and a million other blood-stirring chants, ancient as the human urge to dance. Here it was ominous and joyful at once, filled with threats and promises. Gideon put an arm around Lee's waist, not caring, insisting to himself that he didn't care when he met stiff resistance. It's all about to kick off here. I really think we should... Oh, wait, the CID lads have arrived. The ones buying pasties from Philp's stand, right? Right. Is that because they're really lousy undercover, or... Oh, they're fine undercover. Lee squeezed his eyes shut, briefly pressed his palms against his brow. This is getting worse. Old Penglas is coming. He's here. The door to Cosmic Rays flew open. The dancers let out a great roar, and the crowd picked it up as a figure appeared beneath the glittering fractal. John Tregear emerged from the shop, grinning enormously, clutching the skull. He was fantastically dressed in long billowing skirts, draped over a hoop round his waist. The Calendar villagers began to cheer and welcome. Ray appeared at John's side. He was still pale, but he lit up when he saw the crowd. He stepped to the front of the porch, punched the air 3 times and broke into laughter. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Call hail to Old Penglas, the life and the death of the village. The crowd bellowed back in response. Gideon drew Lee closer to the harbour rail. Ray looks too happy. He did believe you, didn't he, about what you saw and the kids? Yeah, but... Lee shook his head as if trying to clear it. He couldn't hold on to it. He loves his dad, and Tregear never laid a hand on him. Only Kitto. That's right. And Ray loved Kitto too. He never had a little brother. And when John married again, he just adored Dillis's kid. So Ray can't think about this stuff. He knows, but then he makes himself forget. Lee swayed. Alien laughter rattled out of him. And Gideon caught his shoulders and held fast. Oh, great, he's fallen off his wagon, high as a kite. Not on his own herbal remedies, I'd guess. Oh no, something much better than that. And you can feel it? A cheap date, aren't I? You could probably get pissed on my behalf if I was in the right mood. And what about his kids? Has he made himself forget about them too? Yes, like so much dust, or a handful of sand, or sparks on the wind blowing out over the creek, or... Lee! Yes, he's forgotten them. Nothing matters anymore. Right, Gideon straightened up. The CID boys from Truro were too busy cracking beers and looking authentic to notice any signal he might give. I want you to stay right here. Keep out of people's heads if you can, and don't piggyback off anyone else's buzz, okay? Spoil sport. Cosmic Ray's head is lovely at the moment. Where are you going? I've got to stop all this, right now. Another huge roar went up. Tregear had raised the horse's skull high above his head. He held it there for a long moment, and then, with Ray's help, slowly lowered it to conceal his face. The transformation was complete. He took up position at the top of the wooden steps, slowly turning the terrible Penglas visage from side to side. The empty eye sockets swept the villagers, visitors and dancers, as if looking for a victim. Then he leapt into the crowd. The tourists scattered, shrieking and laughing. The impact spread outward in concentric rings until the people near the harbour's edge began to back up. Gideon reached to steady Lee and found himself being propped and shielded instead, Lee a fierce-eyed barricade between him and the jostling bodies. I really am okay, love. No, you're not. Your leg's hurting worse than it did when you first left hospital, and you're scared if you run any more, you'll tear your scar tissue and cripple yourself for good. When I told you to stay out of people's heads, you meant yours too, but I can't anymore, not out of anybody's. And that's the end of the section that I'd like to read to you, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you very much, and thanks again to Mark.